Good evening and welcome to this forum for the mayor candidates for the city of Lake Elmo. My name is Liz Nordling and I will be the moderator this evening. I do not live in Lake Elmo. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I welcome the candidates and those who have joined us here at the Stillwater City Hall and our cable audience. As a trusted volunteer organization, the League of Women Voters does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. We sponsor forums like this to provide voters an opportunity to hear candidates' views on issues of interest in the upcoming election. We have two candidates for mayor in Lake Elmo. They are Julie Fliflet and Mike Pearson. We will begin with opening statements from our two candidates, and we will start with Julie Fliflet.
Good evening, and first thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting the event tonight. I'm Julie Fliflet. I've been a resident of Lake Elmo for 14 years. I've been married 20 years to my husband Todd, and we have one daughter, Chloe, who is 10, and one lovable yellow lab named Duke. I'm a current member of the Lake Elmo City Council and currently serve as the chair of the Finance, HR, and Environmental Committees of the Council. I also currently serve as a member of the Lake Elmo Library Board. Professionally, I'm the Director of Finance and Administration for the Freshwater Society and have over 20 years of fiscal management experience as a CPA and Finance Director for local nonprofit organizations. I'm also a volunteer softball coach for my daughter's softball team, a Girl Scout volunteer as a Girl Scout cookie mom, and I also volunteer with St. Croix Trailblazers and Special Olympics as a volunteer equestrian trainer for kids with special needs. I'm very passionate about protecting Lake Elmo and working to keep Lake Elmo the special city that it is. I ran for city council 2 years ago because I felt that the city council, led by Mayor Pearson, were letting developers determine the future of Lake Elmo and were getting into North Woodbury. I know why I live in Lake Elmo, and most everyone I talk to says the same thing. We live in Lake Elmo because it is different, because it is special, because I choose not to live in Woodbury. Lake Elmo has managed to preserve its rural character, open space, and charm. There aren't many cities like this left, and I'm dedicated to working hard to keep it this way.
Thank you. Next with his opening statement is Mike Pearson.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My thanks to the League for providing our residents an opportunity to hear from their prospective candidates. A little over 4 years ago, concerned that the city was ignoring the big issues we faced, I decided to run for mayor. Prior to my election, I offered my understanding of the city's situation and suggested paths we should take in order to improve that situation. Once elected, I followed through with those suggestions, and on any level, in spite of the difficulties of the past 2 years, my record shows significant successes and accomplishments. Many people have asked me, given the dysfunction of this council, why would I want to continue? Well, frankly, I feel obligated to. 4 years ago, we faced a threat, chiefly the Met Council mandate and its impending fines. The previous council and staff addressed that concern and with true leadership eliminated that external threat. This was a significant victory for Lake Elmo. Now I'm running because of this. As unfortunate it is to say, as it is to hear, we face an internal threat. Every bit as significant as the Met mandate, and that is our council. Since 2015, under the leadership of the council majority, we have had staggering amounts of staff upheaval. Relationships with our partners, specifically the county, have been damaged. For all practical purposes, we have lost our land use and employment insurance. Council routinely puts itself at odds with their paid experts in forming policies, and perhaps most poignantly, as a result of a complete absence of transparency and open government, council's relationships with our residents they must be at an all-time low.
Thank you. We'll begin with the first question that was given to the candidates ahead of time, and it will go first to Mr. Pearson. What are your priorities with respect to current issues in Lake Elmo?
My first priority is to restore functional government. That starts with transparency. Previously, our workshops were broadcast and committee meetings were taped. Our motives are simple. The public should be easily informed. With the 2015 council, this openness was discontinued. In my opinion, by eliminating the transparency, the seeds of our dysfunction were sown. Further, the council should direct our planning commission to reevaluate the lowered population requirements from the Met Council. In spite of the moratorium, the majority continues to deny this common sense approach. Our public safety and public work needs to be addressed. We have very robust budget reserves. If we're more circumspect in our spending, the resources are available to improve these weaknesses without raising taxes. Regarding the library, another issue, the debate is no longer should we have a library, but rather should ours remain independent. Or should we join the larger system? My opponent and I disagree on this, as I believe we should return. I have formed collaborative relationships with the county and have provided a more reasonable counsel. I will help negotiate a library presence in our town while we return to the county system. Thank you.
Question now goes to Julie Fliflet.
My number one priority is growth and working to keep Lake Elmo special. The past pro-growth council led by Mayor Pearson had passed nearly 2,000 units in just over 12 months, when prior to that, there had been only 2,800 homes in all of Lake Elmo. I want something better for our city, and I do believe we can hold developers to higher standards. I do not support cookie-cutter developments that Mayor Pearson has supported. Development decisions are 100-year decisions that we can't take back. Once development goes in, that's it. It changes our city permanently. I will also continue to bring financial discipline to the council and will work and vote to keep taxes low. I brought forward and championed a reduction in the city's water rates, which I felt were punitive and outrageously high. And in the first budget process as chair of the Finance Committee, we lowered the tax levy to a level lower than it was in 2012. And with next year's budget, we have lowered taxes again. In comparison, this tax reduction for next year was not supported by Mayor Pearson.
Thank you. The next question goes first to you, Ms. Fliflet. The City Council seems to refuse to have the Planning Commission start working on a new revised lower population numbers. At least one member of the Commission thinks this is because the comprehensive plan needs a 4/5 vote of the City Council. Can you comment on this, please?
Yes, I think there were things that we did after I was elected. One of the first things we did is pass the moratorium. That allowed us to step back, take a breath, and stop the rapid pace and out of control pace of development that the city was seeing. At that time, we had to look at the bus rapid transit, or BRT, project that was being proposed for the I-94 corridor. This was a long process. I think I attended no less than 7 or 8 meetings with representatives of that project, looking at it, researching it, hearing the pros and cons. I voted no for the BRT, which I felt would have for certain brought more rapid growth and high-density development to our city. I felt it was more appropriate that this would be located just south of I-94 in Woodbury, where it would still be conveniently accessible to our residents, yet over in Woodbury where they are more urbanized and it just didn't seem like the right fit for Lake Elmo. We then looked at other areas of the city. We've been looking at the open space preservation ordinance. We've been looking at other things that pertain to the overall development within the city. And I do think that it would be a mistake for us to bring our comp plan back open where it does need a 4/5 vote to pass, knowing that neither council member Bloyer or Pearson voted for the moratorium and both voted for the BRT. We would most certainly end up in the same
Your
place
time
we
is
are
up.
today.
Mr. Pearson?
Thank you. Could you repeat the question, please?
The City Council seems to refuse to have the Planning Commission start working on the new revised lower population numbers. At least one member of the Commission thinks this is because the comprehensive plan needs a 4/5 vote of the City Council. Would you please comment on that?
Thank you. Yeah, I've asked several times, and Councilmember Bloyer has as well, to have the Planning Commission look at our numbers, revise, lower the forecast. It's not it's us. It's all of us. It's the city. You know, when I was put in place, people say, well, what do you want? Well, I want the comprehensive guide plan. That's what we want. That's what we should emulate. That's what we should try to allow for. So it's the Planning Commission that we wanted to look at this number, these numbers, and it's inexplicable to me as to why. And I have a hint. And the hint and the clue that I have is because it's not been on there after almost 2 years, there is no plan. I'm left wondering what is the. Let me in on the secret. For all we know, I might support it. I came to Lake Elmo for the same reasons that y'all did, and my wife did as well. We like the open space. We like the rural nature. As for I think I'll have a chance to talk about some of the straw man arguments that we've been hearing, cookie cutter developments and all this. I've been in those homes, and they're nice homes. And as far as the BRT, I didn't vote yes for it. The council voted to study it. And we paid money to have a study provided for us. And before that study was completed, the council, majority, voted no. It wouldn't have increased our densities. We had commitments from the Met Council. We were just studying it. That's all we were doing. And I don't, to use it as an expression to provide a moratorium, thanks.
Additional comments? We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to Mr. Pearson first. With the current moratorium in place, especially with regard to commercial buildings, what is in place if the residential bubble bursts and contractors are unable to sell or complete their projects?
It's a great question. Thanks. We just heard the council member Fliflet express appreciation for their work in lowering the tax levy. That's true. We lowered it. What we're using is we're using the permit revenue to buttress our budget. About $1 million come in, and we're taking $500,000 of that. Part of it, we're taking money out of our reserves, Councilmember Bloyer pointed, to pay next year's budget, and we're taking the permit revenue to supplement our tax levy. So will it be a surprise if we have an economic downturn? Will it be a surprise to anybody? Of course not. We'll have one. You can guarantee it. 5, 6, 7, 4 years, who knows? And at that point, it puts the city in a tough position. I voted no for that budget because I thought we need to replace some of our tired, aging equipment. Our plow truck, our public works is 1986. We've talked about the fire trucks. In my opinion, we're kind of eating our seed corn here. We've got to do some things to fix the city. We've got more roads to plow. So yes, the growth has buttressed our tax levy, and that's great, but we should use it and spend it appropriately on the areas of our city that need it. Again, chiefly the public works. We need to address our fire department, go from a costly 2-station system down to a single-station model that I've a proponent of, and it's been denied by this council. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Fliflet.
Could you say the question one more time?
With the current moratorium in place, especially with regard to commercial building, what is in place if the residential bubble bursts and contractors are unable to sell or complete their projects?
Well, first of all, just to make sure it's not confusing, the moratorium does not apply to commercial. So if the residential bubble bursts, I think the question is more asking, do we have safeguards in place to make sure the city is not on the hook for those developments to be finished? And I believe we do have very strong developer agreements with our developers so that taxpayers would not be on the hook to finish the developments, which has happened in the past. And I think we have agreements in place with our developers to give us assurance that that will not happen again. So to me, that's what that question is getting at. And if that were to happen, I do not feel the city is at risk or the taxpayers are at risk for making them whole.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Yes?
I'd like to expand on that. If that is the intent of the question, we created very strict developer policies that if in the event that would occur, we'd be okay. 125% costs escrows to allow these developments to occur. So they're putting them, we have escrows, and eventually the title of the land. But it's a great point because we don't know what the future will hold. And right now it's a very enticing environment. So we should take advantage of it. I think that to stonewall it and to pretend that there's something else there really puts the city at risk, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Fliflet. Any additional comments? We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Ms. Fliflet. Some believe the pro forma is one of the most important financial tools the city produces, yet the council is expected to make important financial decisions, present and future, without the benefit of a pro forma. What are your thoughts on this situation?
My thoughts are that the city has been creating pro forma documents for, I don't know, over 10 years. I can't remember. We got a staff report on it when we were discussing the pro forma last year. We've had several since I've been on the council that have been brought forward to the council. So we do have pro forma numbers. that we have used in making our decisions. I think all of the staff reports have included financial projections and the effect of different decisions we've made and how the city will be able to fund those or pay for those or absorb those. So we did have a new direction. The one pro forma model that we had gotten a bit unwieldy. We kept adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. I think it had grown to be something like, I don't know, 40 tabs long with thousands and thousands of cells and multiple links. And it just had gotten unmanageable and unwieldy and became actually a focus. The model had just, I don't know, there was just so much paranoia around it that we decided to outsource that model and send a project to Northland to ask them to create a new model. We scrapped the model that was in place, and we asked them to create a new model, one that we could use moving forward. So I feel like we have good forecasts and have had numbers in which to base our decisions.
Please
Thank
repeat
you.
the question if you don't mind.
I will repeat the question. Some believe the pro forma is one of the most important financial tools the city produces. Yet the council is expected to make important financial decisions, present and future, without the benefit of a pro forma. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Pro formas are crucial, and it's difficult to make decisions with confidence going in the future without the benefit of solid pro forma discussions, solid numbers. In 2015, when we were debating developments and we were talking about debt, and we kind of, the argument for a development became somewhat of an argument about debt and risk. So I suggested, along with Councilmember Bloyer, to put this out, to do what we, as you alluded to, what we've done in the past, put it out to another brokerage house, to Northland or whomever, to have them study a dispassionate review of our numbers. And that was denied. That was denied because we thought the Finance Committee would do the better job. And the Finance Committee's numbers, to be honest, candid, upfront, were completely different. They're very robust from what Northland's model is, okay? Specifically, are we in tough shape? No, not necessarily, but a big difference is in 4 or 5 years, I think we start to go into the red for operating, okay? So there's a significant difference in the pro formas, and we really haven't had a chance to look at that. We certainly have a chance to discuss it publicly. It was going to be issued in June in 16, I'm pretty sure, June or July at the latest. That was held up, as many know, and it was said then that it would be September, and now I don't know when it'll be, but it's wrong. And imagine a city, imagine how our council would be if back in beginning of 2015 we took that simple advice and said, let's let a third party review it. Where would we be right now? That's a large part of our dysfunction.
Thank you. Additional comments?
Yeah, I would just add, in my opinion, we wouldn't be anywhere different today if we had taken the advice, as Mayor Pearson said. We would not be in any different place today in regards to any decisions or anything that has been held up. So I disagree with that. I feel that statement is misleading, and I disagree that we would be somewhere else today.
Mr. Pearson?
What I'm speaking of, and I thought it would be captured easily, what I'm speaking of is the council's atmosphere. A member of our council was censured over asking, is there a calculator? There was about an $11 million mistake, an error, whatever you want to call it, discrepancy. There was no ill intent, but it was a significant difference. And it was called out, and for that he was censured, and then subsequently censured again. So that's my point. If we would have took that simple, rational approach, how would we be right now? We would be a lot different. We'd be a lot more congenial. Our member wouldn't be censured.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you, Mr. Pearson, first. Do you anticipate any problems with the poor relationship with the Washington County Board?
I'm Washington County Commissioners. Well, I can tell you this, that we had a great working relationship with our Washington County Commissioners prior. In fact, we partnered with them for the downtown project. Our staff is small. We were going to be incapable of managing that project. And we asked for the Washington County's help. And they did, and they provided. And they actually, Mr. Creasel, provide us beneficial financing terms with the county's help, which has helped our town immensely. Now, subsequently, as we all know, our relationship with the county is severely strained. to the point where a county commissioner left our council meeting, was denied a chance to speak about the library. What kind of council does that? And what kind of city? So, yeah, it's very difficult, and we need to repair it. We need to repair that relationship and others. And you do that by being reasonable and realistic, practical, and professional and respectful.
Thank you. Ms. Fliflet.
Well, personally, for me, I don't feel that we have a poor relationship with our Washington County Board. Every time I've worked with them on different things, which has been numerous times over the last year and a half that I've been on the council, I think that the Washington County staff is great. We were able to work with them on getting a stoplight at an intersection that we really felt needed a stoplight. We have worked with them on the realignment of Highway 5, and since they've taken over that road, numerous things. And to say that because of one time at one council meeting when a commissioner wanted to speak out of the public comment time and was not allowed to say that the relationship with the board is now somehow poor, I guess I disagree with. So that would be.
For anybody that, excuse me.
Yes.
For anybody that mentioned the alignment, if we remember how that went, poorly to say the least, and Highway 5 as it realigns. But don't take my word for it. Take the League of Minnesota Cities record. They cited it. They cited that particular instance as a concern, and led to one of the reasons led to our loss of our employment matters or deductible, increase in our premium significantly from $500 to $200,000. They said it in a letter. So that should resonate with some. That was a big deal. Now, are they professional? Yes. Are they a value? Certainly. It's to their credit. And I'd like to get back to both of our credits.
Thank you. Ms. Fliflet, any additional comments? All right, the next question goes to you first. The city experienced an unprecedented level of staff turnover after the last election when incumbents were voted in. What are your plans to ensure that this does not happen if you are elected?
Well, I think two things. I think people have tried to position the staff turnover as it's never happened in Lake Elmo or et cetera. If you look back 3 years prior, we lost 6 or 7 people the same way we lost 6 or 7 people in 2015. It's not that uncommon. And a lot of the people that left were hired by the administrator, and when he left, they left. I feel that today we have a very positive staff. I feel that there's been a lot of positive change. I feel that they are really hardworking, dedicated people, and it sort of pains me when we talk about the staff that have left. It feels like a negative towards the staff that are there today. And I feel that they're doing a great job, and I feel that we have seen a lot of positive change. And the new staff came in to some real messes that they've cleaned up, and I feel that it's just been, I just can't give them enough credit. So turnover is sometimes good, sometimes it's an opportunity, sometimes you need it. I feel that we have had positive change from this turnover.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson?
You just heard that. Does that resonate with you? Does any of us work in an organization where where one would lose 90% of their office staff? I can't imagine that. In my business, when I lose an employee, and I've lost some over the years, it's difficult. Okay, our relationship is with the residents. That should be understood. It's not with staff, but we do need to treat staff well. We need to provide an environment that's not hostile. These 6 other people, I know Sharon Lumby retired. I know Carol Lusick got another job in another city. She got a promotion. I encourage you to look at it, and I encourage you to do that because it's a big deal. And if we watch does our staff do a good job? Absolutely. And I'm proud of them. It's not that. Nobody's talking about that, and we should know that. We should not kind of twist it into that. I've had a business for 20-some years, and there's a way to treat people in professional. Good management, where we lose that much staff. I ran on this. I ran on a brochure in my previous year. I ran every other year we lose an administrator. It's terribly destructive. How many rabbit holes do you go down with that type of transition? It's what I ran on, and the previous administrator, the previous permanent administrator, did what wasn't unusual. He survived an election cycle, and so did his staff. That's unusual in Lake Elmo. I think I think we've got to do better with staff, and I think Lake Elmo's got a long history of that difficulty. But for a few years, things were solid.
Thank you. Additional comments?
Well, I would just, I guess, reiterate the fact that, back when the same number of staff left 3 years ago, this wasn't portrayed as the same thing as it is today. So I think that's telling, and I would just point that out.
Yes.
At some point, the residents have to look into this. The same level of staff left? Who believes that? We lost an administrator, a planner, economic developer. We lost somebody who worked in Lake Elmo for 12 years, grew up in Lake Elmo, and by all accounts, it's phenomenal. Go down the list, folks. You got deputy, the clerk, the communication development director. We lost people, and that happens. But that type of turnover is not good management. And I know that from my experience.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Mr. Pearson. There seems to be reluctance to consider the advice of paid experts. Why pay for expert advice if it is not taken under consideration?
Yeah, it's a good point. I remember being frustrated in a meeting and said we should have the courage of our convictions and fire the lot of them if we're experts on everything. I see it happen all the time, and the League of Minnesota Cities has cited it as our problem, micromanagement. At just the last council meeting, our attorney was offering recommendations, and one of the council members, my opponent, said she was Googling opinions from other cities. Well, that's all well and good, but we're sitting here at the meeting and we're Googling other attorneys' opinions. It's a problem, and we should act, like Councilmember Lloyd alluded to before, we should act like a board. Read boards that work. Distance yourself from the minutia, set broad policies, listen to your experts. Again, I think that's one of the issues the league sees as our problem. And occasionally, I'm sure I probably got in the weeds. I can't deny myself complete absolution of that. But we need to understand to act like a board. It's a big problem for us, and it really puts our city at risk. I've seen it again with traffic. We saw it again with the attorney's opinion, planners. And also it provides a tough environment to work as well.
Thank you, Ms. Fliflet.
Yeah, I feel that we do consider the advice of our experts. I am one who listens to everything. I research everything. I listen to the experts. I listen to the staff. I use my own experiences. I use everything when I try to make thorough, thoughtful decisions. I think, as the mayor said, I think at different times, all of us on this council have had to use all of those things, and sometimes those opinions or those votes don't agree with a particular recommendation, but the majority of the time they do. The last meeting that he referred to, it was actually asked by staff to bring the research. They hadn't done any yet, and I asked them for their opinion on what some of these other attorneys from other cities had said. So it wasn't that I was somehow ignoring, I was actually asking them and posing questions to our city attorney to get her answers and views on it. For me, I guess it's just all-encompassing. I think a lot goes into a decision, and all of us try to make the best decisions we can at the council table. And I, for one, certainly listen to what all parties have to say, and along with everything else that goes into my decisions.
Thank you. Additional comments? Yes, Mr. Pearson.
At some point, I'm sorry to say this, it comes down to integrity a bit. What Councilmember Fliflet is referring to is there is an issue on our agenda, and it involved should council members attend committee meetings, and there is a suggestion, strong suggestion, that we have a policy in place that prevented it. Although the staff was going, there is no such policy. We can't see any policy. What are you speaking of? So the staff suggested, and you can read it in the memo, show us this policy that you're speaking of. Provide it to us. That's what the staff was asking them to do. That's what particularly Councilmember Fliflet. And in spite of protestations that there was such policy, there was none to be found.
Thank you. Additional comment? Ms. Fliflet?
I guess I don't really feel like arguing, but if things are going to be said that are false, there was discussion at a previous council meeting about the policy of council members attending committee meetings. Our previous city attorney weighed in on it. The council discussed it and gave a directive that we were not going to attend committee meetings moving forward. We do struggle because our staff does not have the historical, they weren't there. That's what the argument was about. It wasn't that there wasn't a policy that existed.
Your time is up. We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Ms. Fliflet. You must be tired of participating in meetings that last more than 5 hours, and residents are tired of watching them. In order to stay informed, how can meetings be shortened while remaining productive?
That's a really good question. I think that some of us have tried to bring forward suggestions for helping our meetings be shorter. I think a lot of meeting management rests with our chair. I will say that. I do believe that the mayor sets the tone and is responsible for chairing the meeting and keeping us on track. And we've tried many different things. I, for one, even brought forward decorum policies that the council passed to help the chair, to help the mayor have a policy that he could fall back on, because we were going off track all the time, and there wasn't really anything that had any teeth that you could rely on. We're not following policy here, so. We drafted those decorum policies to try to give us that. I do think for all of us, we need to stop rehashing the past. We need to focus on the issues at hand, and we need to be okay to discuss, take a vote, and move on. And I don't think we do that today. And I think our chair could really help us do that more. I think we all play a role in that, and I do think it's something we need to continue to work on and get better at, and I think we continually bring forward suggestions on different things we could try.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson?
Like I suggested last Tuesday, we should eliminate council-driven agenda items. The League of Minnesota Cities suggested it. It wasn't accepted. Been 34 or 33, something unheard of. Previous to this, council-driven agendas. It puts staff in a tough spot, puts everybody in the position of, again, just function. The parliamentarian, if it's the chair's fault, then perhaps it's the parliamentarian's fault, because when we had a professional parliamentarian there, to the tune of about $13,000, the meetings seemed to last, and I think, I haven't looked at the statistics, but I'd wager that they lasted longer, and were just as every bit contentious, and I would say more. So that plan didn't work out. When this council came on board, they removed the time limit for public speaking. And we saw how that went. That was one of the things that we did that started the dysfunction. Then we went to 6 minutes. That's fine. I asked to be eliminated council reports. We did. That's very helpful. I'm running for election. We all want to say how great we are. But we eliminated that, and it's been helpful. Asked to get rid of agenda items in our defense, both of our defense. We do have a lot of work ahead of us. I think last night we had, 33 agenda items or something like that? It's an incredible amount of workload, back to the staff issue. And there's really no way of getting around that. So we do the best we can.
Thank you. Additional comments?
I would just touch on one thing. because I wholeheartedly support it, and I feel like it's been viewed as a negative. When I came on the council, I did support changing the 3-minute time limit for citizens to speak. I felt it was not enough, and I felt that citizens were cut off right in the middle of trying to make their comments, and that wasn't good. So if that's causing our meetings to be longer, it's causing our meetings to be longer, and I wouldn't change it for anything, because I do think it's important for us to hear from people on the issues that are on our agenda. So.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson?
Okay, well, the irony in that is the public comment time was unended, and one of the first gentlemen to come in, I think he went on for about 12 or 14 minutes and questioned my entry into heaven, okay? And it was fine, met with him later, and we worked it out, but there was no shrill cries of points of order. People have a right to speak, and it's hard, to weigh the right to public speak and the council's business. So, but then now, I'm okay with the 6 minutes. It's not. We definitely want to hear. But the irony here is, we literally closed the meeting with the resident sitting at the podium. He had the floor. It was, in my opinion, a violation of his public free right to speech. This council, majority council, closed the meeting.
Thank you. Anything else? We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Mr. Pearson. Both of you have been in favor Both of you have been in favor of the library rejoining the Washington County Library System. Why wasn't this accomplished last year? Do you have changed thoughts regarding our library's relationship with the Washington County Library System? Why or why not?
No, I don't know what my council, in fact, I think the opposite is true in my council member's opinion. I've stated my position. I've been clear the whole time. I put on my brochure 4 years ago that we need to rejoin the county system. I wasn't successful in providing that. Previous council, I'm going to give them credit right now. They understood they wanted to go back in the county, but they were patient because we had to pay the building off. So they were patient, and they did what was in the best interest of the city by continuing it for a bit, and you see where it's got us now. I put it up in December of 15 that we should rejoin the county, and if I'm not mistaken, that agenda item was kicked off the agenda. I'm not sure on that one, but I know it was voted down. My suggestion wasn't accepted. I might be. I think I am wrong on that. It was voted down. I simply said we should ask their library board what we want, what they want. Okay, what's important to them, and I said volunteers, a certain amount of timeline that the county would operate a library, certain things like that. That was prevented. I said July 1st is coming soon. Then on June 22nd, I think I put up an agenda item on the council saying July 1st, the time for levying is right upon us. We need to decide. I was kicked off the library committee negotiating team, I think within the first month or two of the new council's arrival, and it's been squandered. An opportunity's been lost. And then on June 29th, a couple of days before July 1st, the county commissioners weren't even in place. They weren't going to have a meeting before July 1st when the county has to set the levy. 8 a.m., one of the most controversial items this city has, 8 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, we provided an MOU, an unrealistic proposal, tone deaf to the county.
Thank you. Ms. Fliflet?
I'm glad this question came up because I heard Mayor Pearson say in his intro or one of those initial questions that I don't support rejoining the Washington County Library System, and I feel that is completely untrue. I volunteered to be the council representative on the library board because of my love and support for our library. I watched this great group of volunteers bring our library back from the verge of closure to what it is today, which is a thriving community asset. And I think where we differ is, I would like to see us rejoin the Washington County Library System in Melsa, but I am not willing to risk them or risk our downtown library and risk its possible closure again, which is where we were at. And that would just be crazy to me. It would be throwing in the face what these volunteers have built up. And we have, over my time, I've been serving on the affiliation team. We've brought 2 proposals forward to Washington County. We've worked really hard. This has been one of the things that have taken the most of my time. I'm sure I've spent upwards of 300 hours on library issues since joining the library. The first proposal we brought forward was to be an associate library like Stillwater and Bayport. That was not accepted, and we brought forward a second proposal to rejoin the system where we contributed money on top of the levy to maintain minimum hours and to ensure that our downtown library would remain in perpetuity. I don't feel it was an unrealistic proposal. It just,
Your time is up. Thank you.
it's fine.
Additional comments?
Well, I certainly think that the county thought it was an unrealistic proposal, library in perpetuity. You all have to read the MOU. Google it, find out what happened. And again, please don't, I don't think the audience does, convey my concerns of the library as some type of a disregard for the volunteers. I've said it repeatedly. And remember, I was for getting out of the library when it was fairly unpopular, when it wasn't as well met as it is now. But my position hasn't changed. I said, let's get the building, let's not rent, let's buy the building off. I was a volunteer. I busted up concrete, I picked up shelves, I've done a lot to help the library.
Thank you. Additional comment, Ms. Fleetwood?
Yeah, I will respond one more time because the library is such an important thing for me. I do feel, I don't feel we've even given up on this issue. I feel like we're still in trying to figure out a positive solution for all library users, which is a solution of returning to the county system, but also maintaining the downtown library, because all of our library users in the city are different. Some use the downtown library and some use surrounding libraries, and we need to take all of our patrons into account, whichever agreement we come to.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes.
Well, again, I'll go back to integrity. This council and the council majority ran on getting back in the county system. And I hear occasionally it's the number one goal. Well, what happened? If it's the number one goal, what does that say? What does that mean? Have we failed? Well, of course we have. It comes down to integrity, I guess. We said we're going to get back in, and we're not. And we should have, and we could have, and we will if I'm elected and I'm provided a reasonable council.
Anything else?
Yeah, if integrity is going to be questioned, I ran on providing a positive solution for all library users. I ran on returning us to the Washington County system while maintaining our downtown library.
We'll move on to the next question, and it goes to you first, Ms. Fliflet. You both have different opinions regarding how much the city should hold in reserves. Would you please explain your position?
Yeah, I think we should follow, there's definitely guidance out there on how much reserves the city should have. I can't remember the exact percentages. I think it's around 50%. It could be just a little bit higher than that. Our city has upwards of 85% in reserves right now, and I think that is borderline ridiculous. It means we've overtaxed our residents. And I, for one, want to return some sense of reasonableness to that level of reserves.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson?
Yeah, we disagree on this. One thing, we spent, I believe we spent $250,000 in attorney's fees this year. I believe that's what our administrator said. I hope they got him right. I think I am. We budgeted next year at $170,000. Okay? We're not through the year yet. And in addition to that, we've also decided we also have a suit against 3M, and the estimates for that cost is between $500,000 and $750,000. It's significant. Okay, that's not paid experts. That's not the rest of it. I simply said I wanted to cut tax. We all want to cut taxes, right? Who doesn't? Especially in front of an election year. Well, I'm not going to do it this way because we have some significant issues that we have to repair. Again, I mentioned the Public Works Department, but we should be more diligent. When we try to go, when I went to Chicago to explain to the bonding companies, to Mr. Ross' question, we expressed one of the things that we're able to say was we had significant bonding reserves. I think we're at 80% of our reserves, which is great, which is phenomenal. And you're right, we should not just keep accumulating that. But at such a pivotal time in our city, I didn't want to put future councils. It's not going to affect this council, even if we're mayor, I don't think. But I don't want to put future councils in a position of having, with an economic downturn, having to raise taxes and replace all the aging, tired equipment that we had. The previous mayor told me once when we were talking about a fire truck, he said our fire department, the equipment is Smithsonian Institute. Well, we've only replaced one truck, and Public Works is even more tired.
Thank you. Additional comment?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I will add is that the Public Works needs were addressed in the budget. So were increases in our streets budget. So was investing in our city's lakes, which I think is unprecedented, that the city of Lake Elmo hadn't invested or included money in its budget for protecting these assets that everybody enjoys in our community. And I wanted to partner with the lake associations with a matching program. If they're going to put in money, the city's going to put in money too, because these are public lakes that everybody enjoys. We also invested over $100,000 more in public safety in this budget. And we made sure that we addressed all of the tired equipment, so to say, needs as we were doing this. So,
Thank you. Mr. Pearson?
They're in our CIP. It is true that if that's the addressing them, they're in our CIP. I called it out. I said I'd probably vote for it, but could I get a commitment from this council to pay for this one truck? We take that out of our reserves so we don't have to bond, we don't have to create more debt. And I couldn't get that. So yes, I hope that follows through. I hope that statement follows through. We won't know, but things are in our CIP, capital improvement project, but they're not often done. It doesn't commit the council to anything, they're projections. And I hope, and I'm glad to hear that that's something we're going to consider. But again, I'll refer to the attorney's fees, and only mention too, to her point, yeah, we're spending more, but we're lowering the taxes, and we're eating our reserves to pay next year's operating budget.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. It goes to you first, Mr. Pearson. What does the tyranny of the majority refer to? I see this on lawn signs, and I don't know what it means. I don't think it's good. How could this feeling be dispersed with a possible new council configuration?
The tyranny of majority references, as it relates to Lake Elmo, references the feelings that the public had, the residents had, when the new council came on. It was a protest for the beginnings of staff upheaval. That's what it was, and I mean, we're all knowing. So I think the question was, how can we assume, I made no bones about it, I'm supporting Christine Nelson and Councilmember Bloyer. So will that be a new tyranny of majority? No, I can only say you'd have to see how we've governed before. How did I do it for 2 years on council? How did I do it for 4 years as mayor? Councilmember Bloyer and I, it's not uncommon where we'll vote against each other in opposition. And we've been real clear. From my perspective, you'd have to talk to each candidate. But all I'm asking for is a reasonable council. It's not designed for policy. It's I don't even know where on some of the bigger issues where they stand. It's designed for reasonable policymakers. That's the plank that I'm looking for. And Mr. Emmons, we did work well together. But I said to you in a meeting that I don't know that you can withstand the virulence of this council. And I've seen it play out in the library. I've seen it play out how that MOU came at the midnight hour. Even your own board was upset at how it came about and the lack of transparency. So we work together fine, and if you're elected, we will work together fine. But there's a virulence of the majority that that calls for being candid here. That's the concern I have.
Thank you. Ms. Fliflet?
Yeah, I believe it's an interesting question. I think for a lot of us, when we see the tyranny of majority signs, it's almost comical in that the past tyranny of majority, the past council for 2 years with the 2 appointed council members was a 4-to-1 majority. And, there wasn't, by all rational accounts, with the last election, an election of Councilmember Lundgren and myself, now where there's an often 3-to-2 split, there's more balance on our council. There's less of a tyrannical majority. So it's quite interesting. Also, when I ran, and one of the things that we researched was that when I was running against Wally Nelson and Mike Reeves, was that one of them, I can't remember which one, voted with the mayor 98% of the time, the other one 99% of the time. That doesn't happen today. I've lost some votes that were really important to me. This facade of the majority of the council, and Fliflet led this. Again, if that was true, these votes that I was on the losing side of would not have happened. So it is funny to me what people will say and what people will pick up on. But I am glad that we have more balance on our council today, and I guess the question was just what does it mean, and that's what it means.
Mr. Pearson?
Yeah, I reject that there was a 4-to-1 majority with Councilmember Smith. I remember you saying that, and I encourage anybody who wants to waste an hour and a half to do what I did, and apparently what Councilmember Fliflet did, to look and see the voting record. I did it for about 6 months with Ann Smith. She voted in the majority, so to speak, more than I did. It was about 97% or 98 or 99% with the majority. Where we differed was on council pay raises and some other things. But I really do think that this again goes to what the perspective is. Watch the meetings, watch how the previous council collaborated, watch how this council refuses to do that. That's the difference.
Ms. Fliflet, anything else?
Yeah, I think that I disagree with the collaboration. I think what has caused a lot of this dysfunction is that there's a couple council members now that just don't get their way on everything. And, you know, it's, people want to blame the new council members, but it's also a different dynamic in which there's a couple council members that have a really hard time working with people when they don't get their way. So I do think that it has played a big part in the dysfunction of the council today.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, which is on a similar vein. It goes to you first, Ms. Fliflet. How do you hope the dynamics of the council will change with a different makeup after this election? And what do you hope will get done?
How do you? Well, I hope that the council will be able to work better together. I sincerely hope that, and I would do my part to try to make sure that that happens. Whomever those people are, that we will definitely have change. We know that Councilmember Smith is not running again, so we will have a different council. And I feel that we need to get better. I hope we can. Whatever happens, I hope it's a new starting point for all of us, and we can, work to do better at that. As far as what do I hope gets done, I hope that we can revisit our comp plan, we can reduce our population targets and growth plans, and we can develop a good comp plan amendment that will be right for Lake Elmo, because I am not okay with a $24,000 population target that we have in our comp plan today, and I'm not okay with the rapid growth that we saw for this community, and that is my number one priority and what I hope we see gets done.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Well, there's a lot that I hope we can get done. To me, growth may seem like the big issue. The growth is going to occur, okay? Growth is going to happen. This notion, the things that I was hearing before in the council, there's a disingenuousness about it that it's remarkable to me. This previous council members and this council has been on board for quite some time now, and I don't know, where is the plan? Where is the policy? What am I missing? Let me in on the secret here. If you don't want this, then what do you want? Why was it a 2005 comprehensive guide plan provided that we're proud of? But then when it goes to get enacted, we all kind of walk away from it. This isn't my plan. This is previous councils, previous commissions. This is our city's plan. 24,000 growth. Yeah, you're right. We're at risk because at some point that moratorium is going to come off, and it's such a common sense approach to let the planning commission look at that. That's what we should get done, and I've asked for it with Councilman Blair. Asked for it at least 2 or 3 times. It's an obvious thing, and I don't know why. Again, this notion that somehow I'm all growth, I'm all gas. No, that's not it. It's not what, and I might add this little segue here. The previous council got rid of a zoning agent called RAD 2, okay? 2 units per acre. We changed it to single-family residential. I'm fairly certain of that. I know we eliminated that RAD 2. We eliminated it in areas north of 10th Street. There's 3 properties. Ironically, 4-to-1. Councilmember Smith declined that. We had minor comp amendments that suppressed the growth, but that's just one that should resonate with people. We eliminated RAD 2 north of 10th. 400 homes.
Thank you. That was our last question. And we will now go to closing statements, and we'll begin first with Mike Pearson.
Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for coming. For the past 26 years, I've been CEO of a small business, presently employing upwards of 80 people, working with many of them for over 20 years. I offer this simply because it provides a testimony to a background of stability and reasonableness. Frankly, that's in stark contrast to my opponent and what the city has witnessed since 2015. My experience includes 2 years at Planning Commission, 2 on the council, and the last 4 years as mayor. You didn't see any of this nonsense up until the last 2 years from me. During the last 4 years, I've handled extremely difficult meetings, and through it all, I've tried to strike the right balance between the public's right to free speech and the council's ability to govern. As representative of the League of Minnesota Cities and others, have agreed that as mayor, I understand my role well and can effectively run meetings. However, it requires all council members to work toward a common good in order to be effective. One needs to only watch the last council meeting to witness how that willingness is utterly lacking. My wife and I have been residents for 19 years, and while Lake Elmo is not our hometown, it is our children's hometown, and for this reason alone, I want to help move the city in the right direction. I ask for your consideration and eventual vote. Please help me restore functional government to Lake Elmo. Please look at my website, pearsonformayor.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with her closing statement, Julie Fliflet.
I ask voters to vote for change. I feel the toxic negativity, mean-spirited actions, personal attacks, and voter intimidation need to end. How many of you have been called or visited by the mayor after putting up your Julie Fliflet sign? People tell me he isn't spreading any messages about his accomplishments as mayor or what he will bring in the next 4 years, but rather he only personally attacks me and tries to intimidate voters into taking my signs down. How many of you have seen the cyberbullying taking place, or the Facebook hate site, or the 60-second video clips that make one of the women on the council look bad, or the cartoon that was put up online poking fun of the women council members, or the Confederate flag that was superimposed as the background image of one of the women council members, or the council meeting not so long ago where Councilmember Bloyer called us fascists? The mayor sets the tone, needs to competently run meetings, and should foster a culture of civility and respect. As mayor, I will bring a commitment of civility, decorum, and positive leadership, and I ask the voters to vote for positive change.
Thank you. We thank the candidates for their participation tonight, Valley Access Channel 16 for covering this event, the City of Stillwater for the use of this facility, our league volunteers, and you, our audience, for your attendance and interest. Remember to vote on November 8th. Thank you and good night.